let's talk about a joyous day. The release of. You would remember where you were, where your children were, when they released the final full trailer for Star Wars: The Force Awakens. It was a Monday night. I was watching my New York Giants lose horrifically to the Philadelphia Eagles, and at halftime they showed a trailer. That was an extremely good trailer, very well cut together trailer, which I'll get into later. That changed my sort of, it's going to be good. I want to see it too. I really want to see this movie now. I still want to see, for some reason, Spectre has me excited, but not nearly as much as before. I want to see Spectre way more than...
So hold on, I was just going to say, we had a conversation after the last podcast where you said you were actually, as of that moment, Spectre was the movie you were most excited to see. Has that changed now?
They're now neck and neck. I mean,
okay.
You get a James Bond movie every 2 to 3 years for the most part, but proportionally only like half are good versus half that aren't, and then there's only like 6 or 7 that are really good. So like less than a third are really good. But this looks really good. This James Bond movie, like really good, and a well-made James Bond movie is like what more do you want from? I love action movies, and a good James Bond movie is like almost the best you can do for a good action movie. So, but this looks good because it introduced the characters. The Star Wars trailer introduced the characters for the first time. It was mainly a character introduction trailer.
Yes.
Because the other two, while they showed Rey and Finn, who are the main characters, or the new main characters, it didn't really explain who they are. So you got basically an introduction to Rey, who's scavenging on, I think it's Jakku. It's like this desert planet. And it looks like she's inside the Star Destroyer, the craft Star Destroyer you saw in the other one. You see Finn, who sounds like he's a stormtrooper of what's called the First Order, and
sounds like disenchanted.
He's trying to get away. This is good. We're learning a little bit, and then you find about Kylo Ren, who's some sort of guy. I'm not in spoilers. Besides the names in the trailer, he somehow got Darth Vader's charred mask and is looking into it, saying, "I'm going to finish what you started." So he's some sort of Sith fanatic or some follower of some sort.
Right.
And then you go from there into the Leia theme, which almost got me choked up when you had the Millennium Falcon trying to outrun the TIE fighters, and that was beautiful. That's one of the most beautiful themes of all Star Wars, is that Leia theme from Empire Strikes Back. You see Han Solo talk more. It's a kind of a really beautiful moment because they're asking, they must have asked, what's this Force thing in Jedi? And Solo goes, it's real, all of it. The Jedi, the dark side, which is interesting because he's a guy that thought it was some sort of bullshit in the original trilogy, and obviously he's seen it, and through Leia he's seen it. So it's a great trailer, not just because the effects and you can see the grittiness of the film when you're watching it. Like the shots aren't extremely clean on them. You see, wow, they're outside for that shot. It's not just a fucking green screen, and they're always the same distance away from it. Like you can see real sets. They're outside. The space battles look great. And the space battles, well, they're not even space battles. They're just dogfighting over the planet. So that's, to me, that's cool because there wasn't enough of that, or almost nothing of that in the original trilogy. No. Seeing them over, I think it's a lot more visually interesting when you're dogfighting real gravity and you're over, terrain versus just being in space. And then it's great because it really doesn't give the plot away at all.
No, I was gonna say the trailer did two things. I've been a hard ass about this movie since it was announced, and now, yes, I want to see it. I do. It's convinced me. I like the first 3 movies. I hated the prequels. The prequels destroyed any interest in anything I thought that would come after, and now suddenly I have interest in this. Not even just as a Star Wars movie. I mean, obviously that helps, but I'm trying to imagine what it's like to look at that trailer objectively, not knowing what Star Wars is.
It still
looks like a good movie.
It still looks well made.
Yes.
It looks like it has interesting characters. The cinematography is absolutely gorgeous.
Yes. So I Star Wars or not, it's a movie that I want to see. 2, I was nervous watching the trailer, and I watched it for the first time this afternoon, getting ready for the podcast. I avoid trailers constantly because I don't want things ruined for movies that I know I'm going to see at some point. And that's all trailers do these days. And it didn't really give anything away. It set things up nicely. It gave you a couple of scenes of what you can expect, and left you wanting more.
Yeah, you can piece together the plot kind of in your head. From the poster, there's some sort of space station that could be some sort of other type of Death Star looking thing from the poster. It's in the background. That's rumored to be something, but who knows? I'm hoping they don't go to the well again for another third type of Death Star. I hope it's something slightly different than that. There is someone that probably dies. You see Rey crying over someone. You can't see what or who. Someone probably kicks the bucket. I probably know who it's going to be, and I'm going to be fucking bawling my eyes out in the theater by who they're probably going to kill off. The other interesting thing is that no shots yet of Luke, of his face. Mm-hmm. They used the same one from the teaser with his hand on R2 real quick.
Yep.
No C-3PO. If there wasn't Han Solo and Leia, like you said, it's almost like there'd be almost no connection at all. It's like, so I think with Luke, I don't think you're going to get a huge amount of him in this movie, but I think they're going to build to him in episode 8 and 9. I think he's going to come on more and more. I think it's going to be one of those things where, and you're not going to see him really in a lot of action in episode 7, but maybe in 8 he comes out, and in 9 he starts kicking ass. I think you don't want to blow your wad. You want to slowly build to that, because that'll be one of the biggest geek out moments in any movie history, is when Luke comes back out as the full Jedi Knight.
I disagree. I think that they're going to. I would almost wager they do it in this one. Why? Hamill's not getting any younger, and 2, I think.
Well, he's not 70.
No, he's not, but he's also not young anymore. And I think I think if they're ever going to do anything with these characters and make these new movies their own, they don't need to make a clean break and necessarily eliminate all of them for the next main entry, but you need to get all those big wow moments that people want with the old characters out of the way now, so that you can move on and create new wow moments with the new characters. You can't, just like you don't want them going back to the well, I don't want them to keep relying on the same old characters to tug at the heartstrings.
I think you can have an incorporation. I don't think it's automatically. You always had your supporting players, even in the original trilogy. You had your Wedge, you had your Boba Fett. You had your guys show up that weren't the main crux of it, but they were still there to help the story. It's the same way with the original guys. I don't think they're going to... I think Luke's, first of all, I think it's been said by J.J. Abrams that Luke's an integral part of this trilogy. And there's no way he can't be.
Well,
there's absolutely no way. Star Wars is supposed to be the Skywalker saga, by and large. That's what it's supposed to be. That's what it's been up to this point. I think that's the one tradition they'll probably keep for 7, 8, and 9. It's just how much they're going to be. I just don't think... unless they do a full marketing sort of gotcha, and then he shows up, and because that's great if they do, then great, we don't see him for the first time till in the theater and geek out. That'd be great. Yeah, because most trailers would give it away with him and the lightsaber, his green lightsaber.
Fingers crossed.
But I think
Luke's a Terminator, by the way. Everyone.
I think, and plus, also, these aren't being made every 3 years. Remember, a year and a half for this one, episode 8's going to come out already. So I don't think they're in such a rush. It's not like Mark Hamill's going to die. I don't think Mark Hamill's even 60 yet. He's probably in his mid-50s.
For whatever reason, I always think Mark Hamill is older than he is. He looks older.
He was probably early 20s in 77. It's been almost 40 years, 30 years. Yeah, he's probably like 60, almost 60. But that's how old Alec Guinness was in Star Wars. He could still, with a lightsaber. He just do yoga. He'll stay spry. So I'm excited about this. I just want to talk about something interesting on Twitter that bothered me more than I thought it would, and it was just sort of it was ironic because they premiered this. Obviously, Disney owns ABC, which owns ESPN. So they premiered this during Monday Night Football because people like Monday Night Football to begin with. It's one of the biggest things on cable. They figured this would give us more ratings. Why not? A lot of these big trailers are there. So I just saw a lot of people sort of just like making just deriding comments about football and sports that was sort of ironic because those are the same sort of comments that traditionally people would say towards fans of Star Wars and nerd stuff. And people were sort of, maybe it was their opportunity to sort of turn it around for the first time and say, oh, it's just a bunch of guys throwing balls around. Let's get to the Star Wars thing. Now, it was just sort of, I was just shaking my head like, wow, that's sort of just funny for you to have a perspective like that. Not just because you're allowed to like both sports and Star Wars, because a ton of people do, but it just seemed really just petty. Now Twitter is petty in general, but it was just sort of a really weird spot we were at where it sort of came circle where, Twitter was sort of, going off on, they had to sit through, God forbid, part of a football game or the halftime, and Mike Tirico to announce the Star Wars trailer. I don't know. That just sort of rubbed me really the wrong way, and more than I thought it would.
I didn't notice it, and I guess if I did, it wouldn't have bothered me. I would have just taken it as people being excited to see a trailer and wanting to get to the point. I mean, I don't know. Whatever. That's not something.
We'll
I'm
get to this.
particularly.
We're going to get to this more with the Q&A, sort of a tangential version of this.
Yes.